All right, everyone. Greetings, and we want to say you're highly welcome to this SolaviseTech series of free workshops that we're going to be having. We started off last week, and our topic of concern last week was around setting up a three-tier architecture in AWS. We looked at the best practices of how to set up a three-tier architecture, the relevance of it, and it was an amazing session. We want to appreciate those who were there for the last session and who are still able to make it now. One of the things that we do also is to appreciate everyone who joins our sessions and also to know where you're joining from. We'll be grateful if you can just, in the next 2 seconds, just drop in the chat where you're joining from. We always say people join at different places for different reasons, and they can, through these connections, be able to, have increased opportunities. So we'll be grateful if you can just drop in the chat from which country you're joining. It goes a long way also to help us just have an idea of from which geographic areas people are joining from. I'm your host for today, Dr. Samba Otavis. I'm talking all the way from Cameroon, and we want to appreciate you all for joining. Today, our trainer is going to be Mr. Pride from Canada. He's going to introduce himself, definitely, and I want to seize the opportunity to really say thank you very much, Mr. Pride, for making out this time out of your very busy schedule to prepare this wealth of knowledge to be able to transfer to us today. Thank you so much. And right here, we have people who are already in the industry of cloud computing. We have people who are still novices based on the our research. Those who subscribe for these trainings, we have people who have no idea, who are just curious, and we currently have people who have beginner or intermediary knowledge as far as the cloud is concerned, and more specifically cloud computing. So that's just an idea for you to know the audience. Thank you very much, sir, and the mic is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Samba. It's been a pleasure knowing someone so humble like you to have around. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I want to stress that it's a learning curve for all of us. Technology is like medicine. It's like any other thing that keeps changing, and there are little tweaks here and there just to make it be perfect. Same like medical procedures are updated now and then. So what I'm going to share here with us is just like Doctor mentioned, there are some people who are here who might be knowledgeable. There are some people who are here is like an adventure. Let me see what they're going to talk about. And then there's some people who might be here who are pros or maybe know nothing. So I'm looking for a middle ground to do presentation to you on how we can use AWS cloud or AWS service provider to protect against cyber attacks, because most of us here, we are doing cloud computing, or we're doing, like Dr. mentioned, you're doing AWS training, trying to understand the technology and how it works out there in the market, and how consumers or users, how they manage their system, their data, and all like that. So I will just start by introducing myself briefly. I am Pride Sema. You can see in the cloud, on the screen, I'm a cloud security architect, or we can call it cyber security engineer. I've been in the field in IT security for close to 15 years now. Cloud technology has just come to add a pack on the traditional on-prem technology that had been there for a very long time. And you are at the right place now. Cloud technology is evolving and pulling a lot of people a lot of companies because of its benefit. I'm sure Doctor would have gone through that. So I will just share with us what we will be discussing today. So we would talk just a brief agenda. This is what we're going to be talking about today. As you know, there's a lot. If you can take maybe some people do this training for 2 years to understand what AWS cloud technology is all about. But what I'm presenting to you today is just some bits and pieces within the AWS cloud infrastructure, how you can use the services being provided to prevent against cyber attacks. So we may not touch on every aspect within the Amazon Web Services environment or ecosystem, but but trust in me that the pieces that we'll pick up here today will be a bit of like a representation of everything within that environment. So kindly hold your peace. If you have a question, write it down, maybe take note of where we are. And then at the end of the session, we'll have a general conversation, which it would be interactive. But along the line, I'll give some breaks just to get to know how we're doing. So I would like us to look at the AWS core principles, security core principles. So for those who are here familiar with IT security or cybersecurity practices on site, on-prem, so when you have your computer, you have your phone. So many people, like an example is people have their phones up to now. People are browsing the net, they do a lot of things. But if you ask somebody, do you have any protection on your phone? They'll ask you, what are you talking about? So most people don't know that even your mobile device you're holding, besides not talking of your desktop, not talking of any other system you use in interacting, you need to install maybe endpoint security like antivirus and so on and so forth. So it's free from maybe Apple Store or Google Play Store. So if you're here with your mobile device not having any endpoint protection, the same thing that affects most of you hear of security issues on computers or breakdowns, they do affect mobile devices too. So you can have those endpoint protection running. So now, the core principles involve visibility, control, and agility. From these words, it's quite clear and common that everybody can have an understanding that in AWS, they want to be able to see everything that is happening within AWS. They want to have control. That's the focus. You want to have control of, say, if you are logging in, or if there's an attack, or what is happening with either the EC2, what is happening with the network, what is happening with the data stored there. So AWS has employed these core principles to make sure that, because when you can see, like if you look at this diagram here, if you scale with control, because you know what's happening, even if you're given metrics that if if the CPU mounts up to, or usage is above 70%, I want to be able to have more EC2s in order to manage my workload and not affect my productivity. So they have built up the system in such a way that you can know, if you use other services, you can know what is happening. you can determine a solution based on your budget, what you want to do, and so on and so forth. But you should have some, and you can do that with some speed. You can be able to do that with some speed. So they maintain a very high standards for privacy and data security. And then, like I said, they have automated most of the systems to reduce risk with integrated services. So they implement within the within AWS cloud, they have implemented and integrated security across every aspect. But as we would see in the later presentation, where cloud services is a shared model, where both AWS and us, the engineers or users, are expected to apply certain portion in protecting this environment. We have some duty to offer in order to protect this environment. So now, if we look, we would here is AWS shared responsibility model. This is like known to almost all cloud service providers, where irrespective of the fact that they provide most of the resources, because remember, I said I would just talk today about security. I know that the basics, most of you, the assumption here is that you've covered the basics about these services within the AHS environment, or you come to learn about it. So the assumption here is that you know these services, they exist, like compute, EC2 compute, you know, they exist like the VPC, which is common to everybody. Know that we have in the VPC, we have a subnet and we have a network security group. So that's the assumption I'm taking here for everybody, so that we should just pick a portion of what we have for today's presentation. So now, if we look at our screen, we see that although the customer is taking care within the Amazon Web Services Cloud to configure their system, like the network, the security groups, the firewalls, to choose what operating system that they want, or what application to install on their servers, or the authentication mechanism, or the rules and policies that are involved. So the customers, they have that flexibility to make an option. That's why they have a part to play within the Amazon Web Services Cloud. For Amazon Web Services itself, their part, what they need to play, it's also based on it depends on the type of services that you, the customer, have engaged in and wanting to use. So like I mentioned here, it depends whether it's infrastructure, or whether we are dealing with container services, or whether we are dealing with abstract services like Kubernetes, and we'll come to see, I'll make mention of some of them. So based on those and what we're using now, it will influence the portion, the part that AWS will play. But there are some basics here mentioned, which is like the data centers, the facilities. AWS is in charge of, they take care of the facilities. That is the infrastructure, or what is in there. They take care of the physical security, making sure that cameras are installed left and right, doing access control to see who might be coming in or going out, and make sure that all access to this environment are logged. They are logged, like there's a profile where if you need to do any audit, you can go through those logs. And then they take care of the network infrastructure. You can go and provision a virtual private cloud within an AWS environment, but the background work is being done by AWS. So they have their own part that they play, and they make sure the environment is virtualized. So let's go to some other details just to make it clear that responsibilities depends on the services being offered. So I don't want anybody to, I just mention of some of the services being offered, but if you look at this, what this means is that when we have infrastructure services being, that's if the customer choose to use infrastructure service, like just a simple example is an EC2. The customer have more responsibilities, meaning because you have to go launch that EC2, you have to go set the security group, the network security groups, you have to go determine which application you install into that EC2. Now, so you now if you're talking about RDS, Amazon Relational Database Service, you find that you midway, or if you're talking about an S3, Amazon AWS S3, which is a storage file storage service, you find that you may just go in there and drop maybe a file. Depending on what you choose, you can decide whether the file should be encrypted or not. But the whole mechanism where it is stored, to make sure that it's secure, you don't have much control over those the files that you may store in S3 buckets. But like I said, it depends on the use, what you're using it for, and how you decide to provision it. You have the key management service. If you are doing encryption and you're storing your key within using encryption within AWS environment, AWS stores the keys, they manage it, so you have less control as a customer. The more you go into virtualized services and compute services like Kubernetes and whatnot, you have less responsibility, because most managed services, they are running behind the background without your knowledge. But there's a lot of work being done by AWS to make sure that works hitch-free. And I think just using this one I've explained that with EC2 you do more customization, and then with managed services done by AWS, you do less customization, like Kubernetes, ports, and so on and so forth. All right. Another, just the deeper knowledge for, maybe this may be for those who are already knowledgeable with AWS. This may not mean a lot, but people who are here like for the first time or trying to have what is this all about? So for the AWS shared responsibility model, it's very important within the AWS ecosystem, because you can go within the cloud environment, and you have little or no issues in managing your data or running your business. But if you don't do your own part of the work of taking care of that environment, say you create an account and you share your password, you don't store it securely, or you don't activate MFA, multi-factor authentication, you are not doing your own, you're not taking your own responsibility. So that cloud can be exposed. We've seen situations where we've heard breaches where they say data is exposed because somebody put an S3 bucket to be public, and then didn't control or use a weak credentials, that's logging username and password, which when compromised, adversaries, third parties, attackers, they will have access to the ecosystem and then cause havoc. So just some few examples here is that, like I said, customer is responsible for security in the cloud. And because you have to determine if you want to patch your operating system to have the latest patches, you have to determine whether you would encrypt whatever data or object you may store in S3 bucket. So same like the network security group, you determine which ports are open, whether you're using SSH, HTTP, HTTPS, or whatsoever. You are the one making that call. So that's your responsibility. Now, I did mention earlier, just to be more clear, that AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, meaning that, yeah. Do you have anything? Okay, sorry, maybe just, yeah. So AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. Like I did mention, make sure the data center your data is stored securely. They make sure that even when they're removing disk from the data centers, that's shredding disk drives before they leave, before they're being destroyed or decommissioned. You have different ways of doing that degaussing, and you will learn that different ways. Some they use magnets just to disorientate the binary stack within the disk. And there are different methods, some physical damage, shredding, and then which one again? A few more methods that you can employ in disk management. And they also try to make sure that they prevent packet sniffing at the hypervisor level. This means that making each bucket, each VPC independent. So if you come and you're spinning up an EC2 within a virtual private cloud, there's some level, as we'll come to see in the later part of the presentation, defense in depth, meaning there's some level of isolation for every user, every account, or every service in such a way that attackers who may be member within that cloud environment, within this AWS cloud environment, they should not use tools. You have different tools which they use for network visibility. That's third-party tools. They should not know what is happening in the next environment, whosoever is doing what there. So AWS has done much to prevent this, to sniff, that's sharing information leaking out, as you can put it. And say EC2 security in itself, they're responsible, the network security, and then configuration management. And they have made sure they build the system for continuous availability. We'll see more as we move on. So these are the detailed part that, some of the detailed part that AWS they play. Now, we'll talk about some few basics. I'm just going through this so that I bring our minds back to before we go into the cyber part of it, where you'll be able to relate some of these basic functionalities with the services inside AWS and how you can use those services to put some control on the challenges that can arise as a result of you being an AWS user. Now, for every access within, like Wikipedia, might look at the slide, that is the management of individual. Identity management is the management of individual principals, the authentication, authorization, and privileges, with the goal of increasing security, productivity, and driving down cost, and avoiding repetitive tasks. So that's what it means to identify, to manage identity of users within, or principals within the AWS environment. Maybe I can, let me just see. Anybody, everybody okay? Any question? You can just unmute yourself and speak before we move on. Let me know because I'm not monitoring the chat. Okay.
Yes, cool. Yes, Mr. Pride, we're monitoring the chat. So if anyone has any question at this point in time, just kindly raise your hand so we can permit you to unmute and you can go ahead to ask your question. If there are no questions, you can just indicate in the chat if everything is good up till now. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Azza. If everything is good, you could just indicate good in the chat. Without which, if you have a question, you could just raise your hand and then we'll permit you to ask your question at this point. Thank you. All right. So
Okay.
let's have that exercise for the next 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you very much for the feedback, everyone.
Yeah, like I said, it's a give and take for all of us. So make sure you feel free, relax, and don't be shy with any. There's no question that is stupid. Even yeah. So try if you have any little doubt or something that needs more clarification. We would have a conversation about it. Share it with us, and then let's see what we can do. Okay. If it's something that we need to find out, I'll share my thoughts on how we can get the solution. Because like I said, you can know everything. At any given moment where you focus your mind, you can learn more about it. And when you shift and go to something else, you learn more about it. At the time where you're learning about something, someone may be deep diving further than you or doing something else, which makes you different. So thank you so much.
Okay, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. So the identity and access management, here for Amazon Web Services, we can talk of the AAAs. So it means creating that you authenticate, you authorize, and you audit. So these are the principles that are applied within AWS IAM. You want an AWS provide this mechanism or services which you can use to make sure that there's authentication. Authentication means there should be a username for each user. That's username and password, or access key, or MFA, whatever you like to put it. There should be something, a token that someone will use and access an account within the AWS. So sometimes there are groups to manage multiple users, where within an AWS environment you have like engineers, you have developers, you have security engineers like me, like us, some of us here. You create a group, and then you put everybody there, and then you manage them as a group. So these are the various ways you can authenticate. So you have optional services, provisions like the how you can log in. You have policies and rules that you need to configure to make sure you provision access or you give access to someone just to the needed resources. We will see along the line as we move on the importance of multi-factor authentication. That's besides your username and password, you have a token, something that will be generated. We have different authenticators that Amazon Web Services and other service providers, cloud service providers, they're encouraging us to use, so that when even your username and password, they are compromised, they are stolen or have access by unauthorized persons, they wouldn't have the token, something that will give them, either generate a code or something to permit them to access the system. So putting in a second layer of defense for access control. So these things are very important. Now, let's go into other aspect, which let me go here. Now, so for identity and access management, you want to make sure that at that level within that service, you enforce principle of least privileges for users, groups, and policies, and also temporal credentials, like managing access to data. If maybe you have to share data with somebody, a friend or whosoever, but you don't want them to have that access for their life. So you want them maybe to provision access for a certain period of time, say within 15 maybe to 24 hours, 15 minutes to 24 hours. You can provision, you can give a time to live for objects stored in S3 buckets, and share that that URL with your user, which permits them, like you give a time that this will expire after this length of time, and then you share that link with somebody. Once they click, they can have access to the data, to the objects stored within S3 bucket. And once that time elapses, they have no access. So these are different mechanisms that have been provisioned, and within that you can provision. It's been provided by AWS, but you can provision that within the AWS environment. And then role-based access control can be implemented at the level of the identity and access management, where like an example will be, if you have system admin, you have developers, you have owners. So they say you segregate different levels of who can have access to what. If you look at on this diagram, where we did mention calling all users within AWS as AWS principals. So you have different level of access that can be created as the account owner, somebody who actually going to contracting with AWS to create an account, a cloud service provider account, where these are some of the details that what they can do. And then you have the IAM users or groups or rules, like I mentioned. Rules will be like what you can do, what can this service do? So it's the level of permission that allow an entity to be able to do a task. So what level, what degree of access or changes can this entity or individual or resource, what level of access can they have? So these are, I talked of temporal links, security credentials. An example I did mention about S3, that you can give share a link with a time to live, and other services. So these are just how you can employ AIM to manage data or credentials or users within the AWS ecosystem. I know that the question in your mind is, but where is cybersecurity? I know this is just securing a basic functionality within AIM in AWS, but when you would move to, when we would start engaging with the functionalities within the cloud environment and the cybersecurity world, then you see it will make sense to you. So now, we cannot talk about security within AWS and not talk about data encryption, and not talk about encryption. So there are various mechanisms used by Amazon Web Services to ensure that data is secure both in transit and at rest. In transit means to and from Amazon. Sorry, there's a typo here. It should be, sorry, it should be to and from, one moment, yeah, to and from AWS S3. So in transit, most encryption that happens in this HTTPS are used. It's a secure link tunnel that is created. So if you look on your URL, if you just go and type google.com or whatsoever, and you look before www.google.com, you will see HTTPS. It means a secure tunnel that has been created. So when you use these certificates, you create a secure tunnel for information. And when you're interacting with a website, with a lot of mechanism happening in the background. So you have a secure socket layer or transport layer security. You have encryption in transit. You've heard of VPN, IPsec, and SSH. So secure shell. So secure shell would be when I'm sure by this time, if you're within the AWS cloud environment, you know what secure shell is, where you interact with a server from your local computer. So you create that tunnel by opening port 22, and HTTPS by opening, say, on the network security group by opening port 443. Remember that HTTP, which is not encrypted, meaning data in plain text, which if interrupted by third party or man in the middle attack, they may pull that data, unpackage it, and then they would see if maybe you were buying something online, they can capture your username, passwords, and then use it without your permission. So it's advisable to be careful when you're accessing services where you have tokens, to make sure that it's secure, that it has HTTPS or they're using TLS. And encryption at rest, which within the AWS environment, we talk about objects in S3 buckets. We have databases like RDS. We have different third parties databases within the AWS ecosystem, and then the file system and the disk itself. So you employ encrypt data is encrypted at this stage. Some of them is like any data that is stored, AWS makes sure that it is encrypted and secure. So you can talk about the server-side encryption, where AWS have the key. AWS manage the keys, where they encrypt every information there. And there's also like the server-side encryption with customer keys, where customer, they bring their keys, they encrypt their data, they take care of the tools that they're using for encryption, and they take care of the security of the tokens being used. I want to say this is a little bit cumbersome and tedious, because you need to have once, if there's a breakdown and you can have access to your keys to decrypt the data, that data will be useless, because AWS, in this case, they won't help you. They don't have access to it. So when you're choosing, if you don't have good technologies or better managers, people to manage that, the server-side encryption is a little bit, I'm a little bit skeptical about that. And then you have the client-side encryption, where client, they encrypt their data, say they have to migrate their data, upload their data to S3 bucket, for example. They encrypt the data, and then they upload it to, it's moving in transit while encrypted. And then they manage the same thing. They have to manage the encryption keys, the process, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the mechanism or situations where AWS, they use data encryption. About the network security, we would see more. I'll just mention about these certain things, and then we'll see more in the later presentation. So network security within the AWS cloud is very important in that it's like to determine what is happening. If you have a VPC or a virtual private cloud within the AWS environment, when you go, you create an account, you have these different subnets, which is still like creating another level of segregating your resources, segregating your network. So where you place resources in different subnets, in different availability zones. So that's another way of securing data, because if there's a disaster or something happening in one availability zone, that same data or infrastructure will be available in the in another availability zone. So when you store data, AWS replicate it 3 times. So one of the things you can do to have access to able to monitor to see is to enable VPC flow logs. You enable that to see what's happening within your virtual private cloud. You can use a network access analyzer to identify unintended network access. You can also use AHS network firewall to monitor inbound and outbound traffic within your network security groups. But the fine control, you can also use the network security groups where you open certain ports. Some people still tell me network firewall settings, because you go there, you can, if you open SSA, secure socket, secure share, you can be able to use your private computer and log onto the cloud. If you open HTTPS, now that's communicating to the outside world from that VPC, from that EC2. So there are different set of things that you can do. If you block, you open ports, like employing the principle of least privilege, making sure that you only open the ports that are needed. So that will be creating a perimeter around your resources so that adversaries, they should not have access. There are also NACs, that network access control, which is firewall. So depending on your business case, on your use case, you can determine which technology best work for you, which one is applicable, which one will be around your budget. And also using AWS Shield. So just an FYI that once you create resources within the Amazon Web Services environment, automatically AWS Shield is enabled for you at no cost. So it fights against denial of service. Denial of service will, for some people who may not know, is when you might have encountered issues when you want to access a website or something. You click or you put the URL on the browser, and it says that service is not available, or it keeps like churning and never gets you to the website. Sometimes it might be network issues, but at the same time, when attackers, a certain type of attack exists out here where adversaries or attackers, they go and they generate a lot of packet and send a lot of requests. I don't want to go into the technicalities of it, and send a lot of requests to a website. Either it may be generated by a few adversaries, or you may have an e-commerce website running with little capacity, and then it's advertised. So on day of eve of Christmas, or a concert, or you're selling tickets on e-commerce website for a concert, and then you just open the website 2 days to, oh, so many people are interested, and then you've not built a resilient system that can take care of the number of people that may come sending queries to the server or to the load balancer at any given moment. So when that happens and the system cannot withstand the capacity, it will crash. So that's another example of denial of service, which is not like done by adversaries or third parties or people with bad intention, but they may be users. So AWS has done a lot to enable this and make sure that to a certain extent, customers, they don't face these challenges. But remember, it's a shared responsibility, so you still have a part to play in building a resilient system. So monitoring and logging is also a high part, like we saw in the agenda in the intro. It's very important for AWS security. So CloudTrail provides, I'm sure most people here have learned about CloudTrail. It gives you a little bit of history of what happens, all activities happening within your environment. So when you enable CloudTrail, you can have all these details of what is going on, who made what changes, what happened to an EC2, did it stop, is it running or whatsoever, so you can keep track of all those services. And then CloudWatch is another monitoring services for AWS resources and other web-based applications. So if you look here, what CloudWatch, what does it do? So I've just put a little bit of things here where say collect and track metrics, monitor and store logs. You can set alarms like notification service, either receiving email alerts or phone text messages or calls, just for changes on what you predetermine. If this happened, if I'm running, if anything happened to my EC2, to my server, please let me know. You have those. CloudWatch can send those alerts to you. So how can we use it? So like I said, to monitor CPU, central processing unit, memory disk, network, and so on. You use the CloudWatch metrics, which you can actually see. This diagram we see is an example of a CloudWatch matrix showing you what's happening. And you can react to application logs and availability. So CloudWatch logs, you can access it, see what happened, who changed what's going on with your system, if you have to audit your system to know what's going on. And you can, through CloudWatch alarms, automatically scale your EC2 instant fleet, which is one of the basic requirement of why there's cloud computing at all. That's scaling, being able, and availability, and resiliency, and it being resilient. Okay. All right. So the next thing which I would like us to look at it is using within the AWS environment, you can use the trusted advisor, AWS trusted advisor, to analyze your AWS resources for best practices. Availability, you can use to monitor your availability, the cost, how you're doing with cost, the performance, and then the security, which we're talking about today. So if you look through this little screenshot, which I pull out, because we could take the whole day if we want to go run that, logging in and showing you all this. So if you go to trusted advisor and you go to security, you should, if that is enabled, you will see what's happening within the environment. Like it gives you alert, it checks and gives you and tell you, oh, this thing is happening, like here. It's telling us that within the security group, there's an unrestricted port. So it will point that to you where it is, so that if you can go and correct that. Maybe you open a port that is not being used. So it will tell you, advise you, please block this port. It can also tell you that you've like an example, if you provision an S3 bucket storing, say, financial information, and you open that S3 bucket to the public. So if you have trusted advisor enabled, it will trigger an alert and let you know that you have an unrestricted access, and maybe you can correct that. We have the permissions, I just mentioned of it, and then we have like provisioning a resource, and then instead of configuring the network security group within an EC2, for example, you go and say open or allow all traffic, which is not a good practice. It means that anybody trying to hit on your network or your EC2 have that permission. If much is not configured at the level of access control using IAM or rules or further fine-tuning your access mechanism, then an adversary or third party can have direct walk through your resources. So another service used within AWS that is very important for perimeter security is using AWS WAF or Shield. So the WAF is AWS WAF is the web access firewall. So this firewall, you can use it to dictate and to protect. So initially, it was built for CDN for distributed networks. So, and with time, it has been integrated with elastic load balancers, because this at that preliminary level where people make requests or applications make requests, users make requests to your resource or access your e-commerce website or access your application stored within AWS VPC, it goes through that wall. It's like a firewall itself, but at a web level. So it blocks anything that you've not permitted. It blocks abnormal packets. It blocks a lot of stuff and secure your environment. So it's used, if you configure it properly, it mitigates automatically, or it can send an alert if you configure it that way to their response team. If you have like an operations team, or you have like an incident team, they will manage that. Responding automatically, or if it's not mitigated, or you set it in such a way that it will send response to the disaster recovery team for them to either come in and mitigate. But most often, just imagine if you're in a nightclub, maybe for some reason you went out and then something happened. You want to only activate this service that it will be forwarded to the response team or disaster recovery team. If such team exists within your organization, you can only do that if those teams are mounted 24/7. If not, then the best advice is to respond automatically, or mitigation should be planned into your disaster recovery plans. So I think some general uses of, like I said, it protects from SQL injection, cross-site scripting. SQL injection is when somebody comes and and try to run bad queries into your database. When they run those bad queries, if you don't have a tool that prevents it, they can pull out information without you knowing. But if you build a site that and put a wall that protects against SQL injection, then that's why when you go to banking, you want to log in or use your username and password, and then you use something like a prompt or something, or only character. Try that and see. It will tell you no, and it will show you an error, because most of, I hope I have good people here. Do we? I want to be careful with what information that I leave out there. Are there good people here? I wish I could see your faces because I would determine. Yeah, I want to be careful with what I say. I'm a good person, okay? And I encourage everybody to be a good person. So what I will say here, I'm saying it in good faith. So take it in good faith as well. So while you will go, if you're using any site that you use a username and password, you try to log in, it will like kick you out. It's because that site has been protected from SQL injection. Those SQL, those queries that will provoke you or corrupt the database, most often they are scripted with some characters, like those characters that you will try to use and will reject. Let's not go more into it. Let's just leave it at that level. I don't want to teach people bad habit here. Okay, and then cross-site scripting is fake websites. Like you find that people, they go, if you receive emails and people, they draft something, they come and put that, you can visit, they're complaining about something which you know nothing about, but they say click here and go to that site. So they advertise a site, put URL, but behind it, they have embedded something. So when you click on it, it takes you to a different site. Or it takes you to a different site. Meanwhile, in the meantime, as you click on it, all your credentials that you log into that site, they steal it. It goes into a wrong hands. You were thinking that you were logging into your bank account, but that's a false site that has been built up by adversaries. Then you log in, it will not take you to that website because you should definitely say there's an error. But those crooks, they have your credentials. They can then use it now like you, and they log into the original website. So you have to be careful. But when you have inbuilt to activating tools, so these are things that you advertise and tell your customer that if we do this, especially for people doing business, e-commerce, banking, healthcare, and so forth, that you enable WAF in order to avoid this cross-site scripting where any sensible or confidential information is stored. So site scrapping is like destroying website scrapping is still part of that destructive thing that when they put it, when the attackers, you see the attack certain website, when you go and try to access, it just, they say it's not functioning or this website is not available. Meanwhile, the person who built the website doesn't know that this is what is happening. It's because attackers, they have come and put something there. Then crawlers and bots are things that can be injected into your website and it will do something else that you don't know. That's why you have certain websites you may access. If you have an endpoint security like an antivirus installed, it tells you that, oh no, this site is not secure. You're wondering what is happening. Say this is a genuine site. If you access that same website on any system that is not secure, yeah, I'm just looking at my time. I know that we started a little bit late, but I'll try to speed up so that I don't eat much of the time. So adversaries, they come and if you don't secure your sites, they come and install things there. So you may build your site without anything in mind, but adversaries, third parties, they come and put like Bitcoin mining app, or inject it into your website, and they are using when people access, it's generating either mining Bitcoin or doing something without their knowledge. Sometimes you go to certain sites, they are so slow, it's because they are bots. People have injected things, adversaries have done something behind that you don't know. So when you use this WAF, it prevents all that. So we did talk about HTTP, mitigate denial of service. Okay. And are we okay? Any question? Dr. Samba, anything in the chat? Any question in the chat? We good?
Yes, we good. I think Peter had a question. He talked about Peter. I think maybe you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. When we are talking about the AAA with AWS Authenticate, Authorize, and Audit, under Authenticate, I understand very well the using your username and password. I understand too about the access key, that is MFA. I saw the word federation there. I didn't know whether that federation was is it another layer or was it and if it's
Okay.
another layer, what does it mean? So I saw it, I didn't really understand that.
Thank you, Peter. So are you familiar with Active? You know the word Active Directory, right?
Active Directory.
Okay. Let me know the word federation. What it means is just take the literal meaning that you know, putting two systems together, linking two systems together to work for a common good. So you can federate, like there are some companies that have resources, say on site. They have an office, have a computer like you have there, and then they have their services running there. They provision services. They create users and password using Active Directory. They create different users. They create services. So they provision access to services. So within the computer system, they'll say you have access to this, or you can access our server, you can access the web server, you can access this one and not access that one. So you have different users on-prem, and then they may have now an AWS account in the cloud where you have to come and log in, right? So now they may install some applications in the cloud, and they have applications that are running on their local database services.
Okay.
Now, but they want to be able to use that when you are using the application, it should be seamless. So you will not even understand or notice that you are accessing something that is on the cloud or something that is on-prem.
On-premise. Okay.
So they federate that usage. So they have different tools within AWS, within all other service cloud service providers. They have that federation, like Active Directory Federation, where they create it. When you create users on-prem, you can sync it to users. You can sync it to the AWS cloud, for example, so that you don't have repetition. So you have things, it's federated. Is it understood?
Oh. Very well,
Right.
very well. Especially with the mention of the synchronizing it, I get it well. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are we okay? Any other question? If not, we keep.
I think that was the only question we had in the chat. Unless someone else has another question up to this point, please, you can kindly raise your hand and then you pick up the mic. Thank you.
If not, we leave it at the end. We'll still have room, hopefully, to discuss. So another thing that I would like us, which is very important about security in AWS is, and this, remember that the mentality here is preventing cybersecurity attacks. Whatever system you go to the cloud and you want to secure yourself and make sure that there's no incident. So the mindset is preventing that a third party or unauthorized access should not happen. So first thing that is very important whenever you build your system or you migrate to AWS cloud, or you create a system there, just ask yourself a question. Very important. What happens if my EC2 goes down? What happens if somebody had access to my account that I didn't permit them? So some people will say, oh, why being negative? But you have to think about the negative in order to build a positive. you can't dwell on being, although you may be a positive thinker, but you should think about the worst case scenario. Just one moment, please. So you come out with an incident response plan, which it means you want to, you do preparation. And this preparation, you have to create a team that can dictate, or means that you can dictate that there's something. Incident means an unusual happening within the environment that may disrupt business processes, that may disrupt the provision of services. So if that happens, what will you do? So when you have any system, it's good to have, if you have just an EC2, come up with a plan. If all your business is running on AWS, and that's where you depend on everything, and you go and build a system that is not resilient, that's you don't plan for disaster recovery, you don't do anything, you just create system running, you don't have multiple AZs or different regions, or you come and create your resources in one region. What happens if there's like, what example can I quote that happened? You have, like in the United States, they're always not tornado, they have tornado, you have floods, you have all these waves coming with water from the sea and all whatnot. So if there's flood and all the data, if you choose just one region where the data center is, because you want to minimize costs or whatsoever reason that may be, and then it's damaged, and all your systems are in the cloud, what becomes of it? A use case in my company where I work is a healthcare company providing care where there's downtime. Like they said planning for downtime. When there's disruption in service provision, and you have all your systems stored online and there's no power, will nurses and doctors allow patients to die? So when you have a hospital and you have those systems storing all those data, you have to plan. Now, okay, these are what we will do if we don't have service. You determine, okay, if something happens and we have to bring back the service, bring it up, what is the recovery point objective? What is the at what level? Because we'll be okay that we would lose 2 hours of data, 2 hours of information. We will write it on paper. Alternative is, okay, you write with a plan that we'll put when we're attending to patients, we would write this on paper. But here, these are things that we do when we cannot access the system until that recovery point objective is attained. And then recovery time objective is the time that it takes to bring back a system. Say if you were running a hot and a warm site, say you have 2 availability zones or 2 regions, your system replicated somewhere. Does it take 1 hour, 2 hours, or 30 minutes to recover that system and run from there? So you plan this ahead of time so that you may put mechanism in place how to ensure business continuity. So you prepare playbooks, things that scenarios that can happen. You can even do that, and then I'll talk about that in post-incident where you create a risk register. So on the operation side is try to follow best practices. An example is NIST, Phases of Incident Response. NIST is the National Institute of Standard and of Technology and Standard in the United States, where they give guidelines. These are government sites that give guidelines on how to deal with information technology issues. There are a lot of guidelines that have been given by by the NIST framework that you follow to avoid or to manage incidents when they occur within an environment. So detecting, analyzing, containing, eradicating, and recovering. So they have given some guidelines on how you can move on, you can handle incident response, incidents when they happen. And then the post-incident activity is like when incident happen, this part of the plan, when incident happen, you document it, document what happened, how it was resolved, so that in future, if that happens, you just go to your run book. Oh, this happened in the past, and these are the things that we did. That will help you to use a shorter time in resolving issues, and look at the causes, what caused that incident, then you solve it and document it. So when something happens, first you rush to see what happened or how it was resolved. So you document those things, build up a risk register where you, depending on your type of business, the risks that you encounter being in a hospital is different from the risks that you encounter in a bank with banking sector, although all of them are dealing with critical data or an e-commerce site. So when you have, besides all that, when you have a well-architected framework advertised by AWS, if you build your network or your system in a well-architected manner, following those guidelines given by AWS, this will better help you to resolve issues when they come up, if you follow those best practices. And also, another thing I just wanted to mention here is that you can use Lambda functions, which is another tool within AWS. You can use that to remediate incidents when they come up. When you know that this type of incident, you have them in your playbook, you can build that scenario, come out with queries or functions, and give it instructions that do this when this happens. Do this when the bad guys, if somebody attempts to log into the account 2 times or 3 times with the wrong password, send me an alert. Or if you find that there's a certain IP address that is trying to access my web application every second or every millisecond, which is an indication that there could be a denial of service, send me an alert. So depending on the function, how it's written, or there are customized functions within AWS, as well as you can go and build your own and give it instruction on what it should do. So another way that we need to fight to protect against cyber attacks within AWS environment is preventing ransomware attack. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of ransomware, but people don't know what that is. Some people don't know, some people may not, they have heard about it, but they are not aware. So ransomware just means, that term is coined from when people use technology. People use technology to, or applications, they are actually in the dark web, good guys who have become bad guys, building good application that is termed as bad application, using it for bad purposes. So you can actually see a software, like you go and buy an antivirus and install on your computer. There's somebody out there building application. They're not dog guys, building application that do wrong things. So there are some people, they actually go and they're buying, but they know that I'm buying this to go and hack somebody's WhatsApp. I'm buying this to go and hack to use it to steal banking credentials. So I'm doing this like, okay, it's people access who keep their money, who keep, like they use MTN Momo, mobile money. Attackers can come and say, I'm going to, like you always see some of those texts that come to your phone, or like somebody requesting for your PIN, or the text message that click here. So behind, when they go and say click here and share your PIN, and maybe you lose access to your account, what they have done you see certain highlights, is that on this hyperlink, they have embedded a link to their own website, to a resource where they have stored something. that once you click download this, or if you click on this picture to open to see what it is, download this information, run in the background without your knowledge. Those crawlers, they steal information. That's not as bad as using that to encrypt your system. You click on something, it just goes, it detonates some functions that goes and encrypt, say, your hard disk. So that can happen on your own physical computer. That can happen within your AWS environment. If you have those storage, your servers, you have those databases, you don't protect them, adversaries can send those links or they have access. Like I've said, there are different ways they can steal your login credentials, they access your system and encrypt using their own technology, their tool to encrypt your data and asking for money. You've heard that over and over where systems they go, when it happens, organizations, they take down their system, or maybe they take down those systems and ask you to pay money. If you don't pay, it disrupt your businesses, you lose millions. An advice that I will share out is, these days, people, I'm sure there are a lot of young people here, people want to share their intimacies, their pictures out there. Be careful. If you have them stored on your phone, my advice is that create a PIN for those images, because the day that these guys, sometimes they access, they just look, they said, oh, this one has nothing, they were abandoned. But when they go through, they may hack your system without you knowing. They go into it, they don't find useful information, they just put you at the back. If they hack and they see that, oh, that's Dr. So they see the name GR, Dr. Samba, and they say, oh, okay, maybe, yeah, there are seminars he's organizing, he has patients that he attends to, they think that they can extort money from you. Now, they encrypt that data, or they take that information and tell you, you no more provide your services to your patient unless you pay me money. If you don't pay me money, I have your image here that I collected from your phone. They'll show you. I will share your privacy out there for everybody to see, to disgrace you or something. Just so it's good to be aware that ransomware it's affecting technology services or cloud service providers or users around the world heavily. It's accounting to more than, according to Gartner, more than 60–70% of security breaches. So what can we do? So AWS, like what we see on the diagram here, is an explicit services within AWS that you can use to mitigate ransomware. It involves all best practices. Like, first of all, if users, they want to use the system, we make sure we configure our system properly, access control. If there are abnormalities, we should be able to use AWS config to see that, to prevent if something is happening bad in our environment, we can use AWS config. We want to make sure that we protect. So protection at the level of the VPC per se, that's by using AWS Identity Access Management, IAM, that we talked about earlier. We can as well use the key management service. We talk about encryption. We did talk about the AWS single sign-on is still part of the AIM tools. We talk about that single sign-on where double authentication before you go into a system. We can talk about secret manager where you store your credentials. within AWS. We've talked about AWS Shield and WAF. We just talked about WAF. Also, from the general management side, there are other main tools like the AWS Security Hub, where it's a platform where you can monitor and see all what is happening within your AWS environment, or the Amazon Guard Duty, or the Amazon Macy for compliance. So to determine if you've built for compliance, like there are some laws, privacy laws, financial laws for payment card industry, like they tell you payment, there are some frameworks, they tell you if you have to do anything that you collect payment information from people, this is how you need to build your servers, their services. This is how they need to be encrypted at rest and in transit and so on. So whenever you use like Amazon Macy and you have a server where it has this identifiable information or confidential information, it would alert you. Amazon Macy will alert you that you've stored this information here and it's not compliant to maybe payment card industry or the GDPR, which is the privacy law for all European data stored outside the European Union. Series of rules that you need to follow. So if you are dealing with clients, say in Europe, and you take their data you want to store in North America, which is against the rules, privacy rules within the Europe, Amazon Macy will indicate to you and tell you, oh no, this is not correct. Maybe you did not know, but it will help you to identify those compliance and you stick to it. And then you have the Amazon inspector still. Depending, it doesn't mean that you have to use all of these tools. Depending on your budget and your use case, it determine what you would do. Yeah. So, and now for dictate, these tools also help you to dictate and helps you to respond to it, which is, we did talk about CloudWatch. We've talked, I did mention Lambda, how you can use Lambda functions to remediate, to respond to this. That if you find if you sense any ransomware, shut down the server, or what some of even build up configurations to avoid ransomware is preventing lateral communication within your environment. That like segregation, not allowing one EC2 to talk to another, except there's a business case. And if it should communicate, it should be through a particular port. So you specify those things, because when attackers themselves, they build technologies or ransomware, those applications run through particular ports. So for every day when I work on a day-to-day basis, I get configurations coming from the server team, from different teams. They ask me, we want you to open this port. We want you to approve or open this port for us to use, because we're installing a certain application that uses this port. First thing I do is I go, and if you have like 443, go to online internet and just type common attacks on port 443. So it will list the type of attacks, what the different cyber attacks that have happened in the past, that attackers have used that ports for. They will tell you. So if you search for all those ports online, like attacks on this port, you will see what is happening with those ports. So if you want to approve or open a port, beware of what happens, what vulnerability that you're opening that application or that server to. I wish I could talk and then you people respond like yes. But unfortunately, technology doesn't permit us. So these are basic things that if you employ them, you would be able to fight against ransomware. They're basic things, but when you put them together, it does the magic. Now, one thing I would like to, before I go there, any question, please? So far, so good. Okay. Silence is golden. And now, don't worry about all these things here. It's just so that when you look at this picture, remember what I was talking about previously. Oh, what does this do? What can I use this for? That's the essence why I had them here. Now the best practices for Amazon Web Services security. So one of the best practices to avoid a cyber attack is implementing defense in depth. There's something I wanted to mention. Let me go back. There's network. I did mention network. Yeah. Okay. There's a QR code here that I did put. If you scan this QR code, be it on your screen, if you have a code scanner, it will take you to a AWS AWS security architected diagram, network diagram. So it gives you details on how to architect your network within AWS securely. So it gives you all those details. If you scan this, I just wanted to mention that. I forgot. So we were looking at best practices for AWS security. So defense in depth. So why I went back to talk about that AWS security network diagram is because that gives you some level of defense at any given level. So when you're designing your architecture, I'm sure I was happy that Dr. Samba talked about that last week. People had a session on 3-tier architecture. Maybe people are planning on the 5th tier already. I don't know. Maybe people are going to do the 5th tier because I've done just the 4th. I've spent my time to build a 4th tier well-architected framework or design. So hopefully you guys come out with the 5th. That would be interesting. And don't forget to share with me. So you have to implement security at every given level. Within the AWS environment, we've got like, let me see what, okay, no, not here. I didn't put, it was too huge. There was a diagram I was contemplating sharing with us, but I didn't want too much slide, so I pull it out. So defense in depth, like an example within AWS environment is, we have the Amazon cloud itself. Then we have, when you come in, you create an account, you create a VPC. So whatever thing you're doing within your own virtual private cloud. So when you create a VPC, it's segregated. Now you go within the VPC, you create a subnet, it's segregated. Within a subnet, you create different services and you give permissions. You use something like a network security group. You use network load balancer. You use application load balancer. You use even a web application firewall, WAF, that we just talked on. So giving that design, and every resource that you place at any given network level has a job to play. Now, when you put that and configure them properly, because it's not just putting all those things, you need to configure them well. If you configure them, you put a WAF and open just a network security group and open just specific ports, it will work. If you open all ports, although you have network security group, there's danger. So you have to design with defense, like blocking. That takes us to the next point here, zero trust architecture.
Hello, Pride. Maybe I just share a diagram for novices. For the benefit of doubt, maybe novices who didn't have the chance to attend our last session, to just have an idea of such in-depth diagram you're talking about. Maybe 1 second as you present through. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Doc. Yeah. So we can see that's defense in depth. You segregate every sector, like you're using Route 53 for DNS resolution. And then we have like the Amazon cloud, I said, you have a region. That's within the region that you choose a particular region you don't want. Maybe if you're running your business in Cameroon or in Nigeria, you choose the African region, like in South Africa, where you have a region in South Africa. And there are plans by Amazon Web Services to build one in Nigeria. And I don't know if they're done now or they're still, yeah. And then you have the region, and then you have the VPC, at the VPC level, and then you still have the segregation, where at the VPC level, you have different availability zones, segregating them and using different services to provide security at each of this level. So that's what we're terming defense in depth, segregation, and then employing those services at different level of the segregation, configuring them well to secure the infrastructure. Thank you, Dr. Samba. One moment. Can everybody see?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not,
What?
no.
Okay, one moment. Okay.
Good now.
Okay. Okay. So thank you. Now we talked about defense in depth, about those segregation, and the next point we talk of zero trust architecture when you're designing your solution. Zero trust in this case means that if how do I put it? Okay. Now, if I build, I'll take a normal use case for a better understanding. If I'm living in a house with, say, with Dennis, sure, yeah, I'm living in a house with Dennis. We have a key to our main door, which we call parlor, sitting area, and then Dennis has a room. I have a room. So, because we live in the same house, have different rooms, doesn't mean that I should not lock my room when going out. So when I leave, I key my room, I go out, I go through the main door. Dennis will leave key his or her room and go through the main door. Both of us, we have the entrance to the main door, we have keys. We come and open and we go in, open our individual rooms. And then for those who have fences, which is rare, I know it's a rare commodity, you have a fence, you have to go unlock the fence and or unlock the fence and go out. Now, because you've invited Dennis' friend, because I have invited Dennis' friend to come to our sitting room, doesn't mean that I should just allow our gate unlocked, allow our entrance to the sitting room unlocked because Dennis' friend is coming. So if I invite somebody to, because we don't know whether thieves may come or whatsoever, if I invite somebody, I should be able to give them key, or Dennis should be able to give them key to open the gate, the main door, and then sit in the sitting room. If I want to invite that person to the room, good and fine. If I'm there, I open the door or I give that person the key. So zero trust means that you build your network, your architecture in such a way that for any system to talk to another system, it should authenticate itself. I don't know whether people get it. So meaning that if server A is to talk to server B, or if there's an application running, like look at the three-tier architecture. You have the application layer, you have the web layer, you have the application layer, you have the, the database layer. Now, And then something people use like Zero Trust, you have like the Bastion host, which is like a landing zone, which you come and for anybody authenticating to your network, to your VPC, to your application, you create a common area where everybody has to go through that so that you reduce the traffic, or you don't give direct credentials of your internal configurations like your IP addresses of your servers, and you don't expose them for hackers to use. So Bastion is one of the is an example that you can say zero trust because you're not giving your data out. You put security at any given level. So zero trust principle entails authentication. We did the 3 A's. So you employ the 3 A's at every given level. Don't just say because you have a resource within the same VPC, they should talk to each other. If there's no business case, that don't open the ports for or create a network security rule, a firewall rule that one system should talk to another. So I hope that is clear. If we'll come to that if there are questions, and I will answer them. Then you have to make sure you patch and harden your system. So it is your responsibility, because most often most organizations, they don't put automatic patching when patches are released, say within EC2, but they'll alert you that there's a patch, there's an update that has been released for your system, for your application, for your EC2. What do? You go to your test environment, you run the patch there and see whether it's functioning well with your application. If there's no disruption, you test it before you deploy it to production environment. You don't just take patch, and because it's here that there's an update, you just run the update without testing, because some don't work well with your applications. Now, the principle of least privilege is very much entwined in the zero trust architecture. So least privilege means, in this case, providing access, just the access that is needed just for the required business purpose. So if somebody doesn't have any server, anything to offer on a server, don't give him access. Provision access just to the required resource. And then we did talk about developing and exercising an incident response plan, doing a play out. They call it tabletop exercises, where you actually run that out, simulate it, and see what happens. Some organizations you see, they talk about penetration testing. They talk about the white hack and the black hack. And as that is people doing the good things and people doing the bad things. Some group trying to defend, some people trying to penetrate a network system. We have that we've talked about network segmentation. And another point very important is the endpoint protection. Like I did when we started, I did mention of having an antivirus running on your device, mobile device as well. On their server, you should have an endpoint protection. There are so many AWS third-party tools that are running out there beside all these services offered in AWS, where you still have third-party tools like another out there, like for Azure, which is Microsoft version of AWS. You have the Cloud Defender, Microsoft Cloud Defender for Cloud, which is an endpoint protection tool within the Azure ecosystem. You can use that to manage, to protect resources in AWS environment. You can use a Trend Micro has got One Cloud, which is a tool that I've used to scan objects when uploading them to S3 buckets. So when you go to an unknown or maybe you have to do a migration, or you have to upload some data, you actually scan them to make sure that there's no malware in it. Although you can do that proactively, AWS has a scanning tool that they use, that they constantly look for malwares within the ecosystem. And then you have to employ continuous monitoring and resolving the issues that may arise within your environment. So if you look, what we have in front of us is a summary of the security tools that we have within the AWS ecosystem. So these are the various services. This is a summary. These are carries the various services that we can use for different purposes within the AWS ecosystem. So for identity and access management, what you can do there is using the IAM we talked about. We did mention of single sign-on, AWS organizations that you use to have an overview of everything happening within your to manage your accounts and so on and so forth. And then you have AWS directory services, which I did mention about. Some people may have on-prem Active Directory when I was talking about federation. So directory services where so you can federate those things to ease or to authenticate on-prem users. And then you have the Amazon Cognito and Resource Manager and so forth. So for dictative controls, that is, you want to dictate and see, so you can activate, you can actually use this AWS Security Hub. You can use Amazon Guard Duty, Inspector, CloudWatch, Config, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things there. One important thing that is I would like to mention about the dictative control is the AWS Internet of Things Device Defender. Most things like people, we are so excited to. Dr. Samba, are we good on time? I know
Yes,
that it's a bit
right on
okay.
time. Yes.
All right.
Right
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know, just to mention that picking one of these things and talking about is something you can spend a whole day, but we're trying just to take the topic sentences and talk about them. So you can go and actually on AWS documentation and read detail. It's a whole lot just on AWS config or on AWS CloudTrail and so forth. This is just giving you an idea of how you can use this system, what you can use, services you can employ to avoid, to thwart a cyber attack within their AWS cloud. So I was talking about the Internet of Things here. We're here. I was talking about this device defender. So today is a challenge because people buy refrigerators that they connect to the network. People buy different things they want to connect to their network, be it internal or household network, and it's just chaotic because initially these watches, smart watches, they connect to Wi-Fi, they do different things. They were built with little or no security in mind. So they just wanted a functionality. Now, even some data centers, they have, because you have to maintain temperature in data centers, AWS want to sit where they are, where the workers, whether they're in Cameroon, in South Africa, in Jamaica, whatsoever. They want to sit there and know the temperature in the data centers. So they have put on smart devices, something that connects to their network to be able to provide that data. So most of these things in the market were built without protection. So now it is very important. There's a company that was breached. What they did was, within their environment, they went and bought a fish tank, an aquarium, the box with water where people can put aquatic animals and keep in their houses, fish, crabs, and all whatnot. So this company, they went in their lobby area and put an aquarium. And then they wanted to be able to feed the fish over the weekend, provide food, make sure they are doing well, make sure the temperature index is contained. So what they did was they connected that device to their network so that somebody from home can able to manage that. But you know that device, attackers scanning, they did reconnaissance. They found out that that device had a vulnerability. So there was something, an update that was not patched. There were open ports on it and so forth. They attacked the banking sector through their fish tank. So they were able now to access that. They breached their network. Through that fish tank, they access the banking network, internal network. And that is because the ports of the fish tank were exposed to the outside world. Communication was going to the internet. The access through that went to the internal network, and then a breach. So those things, they have caused a lot of technology companies to come out with Defender for Internet of Things. So you have fish tanks, those thermometers, they call them Internet of Things. So now AWS has come out with a way of incorporating them. They can identify them when they have on their network, identify them and protect them. So infrastructure protection, we have firewall, we talk about all these things here. So this is just a summary to help you understand, or if you need a quick fix, you come here, take a look, what do I do? What do I use? And I think that was a little I was able to scramble, pull together, and present to us today. Just to mention before I come back here that there were a lot of resources that were of help to us to pull out these things and learn. So these are free resources. You don't pay anything to access them, but there are tons of information here that can be helpful so that you secure your AWS account and infrastructure and data in the cloud. So thank you so much for listening. I think I'm privileged to have you guys sit till the end. I don't know how long did Dr. Samba told you that the presentation would be, but I'm sorry if I spend a lot of time. I've been a teacher before, so I'm used to talking, and I like it. It takes me to a different energy level if I have to teach. So thank you so much for listening, and I would like.
Thank you, thank you very much. Everyone, please, can we just drop our appreciation in the chats? This is right on time, 2 hours as scheduled. We are so grateful. Please just drop your appreciation in the chat. And for those who have questions, you can kindly raise your hand. Or maybe not just questions, right? Just your feedback. It could be questions, it could be feedback. I believe we're in a century where there's a lot of information out there, but having a community where we can constantly learn, we can constantly share information, we can constantly upgrade, it's so vital. And we really want to appreciate you, Mr. Pride, for making out this time to deliver this. For everybody who has gone through this would agree with me that this is not just product of guesswork, it's product of you sat down, you prepared this material, you came forth and you delivered. That's to show some sense of diligence, and also to say that you really honor the audience that was able to make our time to come here. And also on our part, SolaviseTech, we want to truly appreciate you all for making out this time to sit here. 2 hours of your precious time on a weekend is not to be taken for granted. We really want to appreciate you all. And to say that, just like Mr. Bright said, these concepts in 2 hours is not enough to grasp everything, but for sure we all must have taken home some take-home messages. And to say that at SolaviseTech, we spent over 6 to 7 months to be able to go in depth in some of these concepts. For example, IAM, we take like a week or two to be able to go in depth on IAM. We do some hands-on practice on IAM, so that some of these things that are being said, maybe it may be just theory in the air, but once you have some hands-on practice, it solidifies it, it makes you understand what could happen in a real world environment. That's for those people who are coming in new, and for those who are in the field who understand even much better what we're trying to say. And that from time to time, there are always updates and changes. So for those who may want to know more about this, Mr. Pride, please, maybe we can equally connect on LinkedIn. You can, this is a moment of networking as well. You can maybe drop your LinkedIn URL. Pride said,
Sure, I can do that.
Any other person who equally has access to their LinkedIn URLs, we could just drop on the chat. You never can tell through opportunities like this. And in one of our sessions, there's one of us who is going to present on LinkedIn and networking. I was able to connect with him on a session like this in another forum where I listened to him talk. I saw how he was able to share a lot of valuable information. I connected to him in the back end on LinkedIn, and thereafter, he has been blessing our community. And this is how people equally connect with us. So if you're joining us, maybe you're on the feed as well, and you would wish to be able to give back to the community, to be able to educate others about this technology which is growing, we are very much open and welcoming. You can reach out to us on that. So at this point, let me give on the mic. I can pass it over to one of our trainers as well at SolaviseTech, Mr. Eric. So you can kindly coordinate this space. Thank you very much. While people are dropping their links URLs, anybody has a feedback or a question, you can kindly coordinate that, please. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay, Dr. Samba, thank you for giving me the space. Thank you, Mr. Pride, for the wonderful delivery. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been insightful. And I think that at the end of the day, anyone who's been here for the past 2 hours is not going to leave the same, right? Thank you so much. You did well. You went in depth more than I even expected. All right, and even some of our students who are here, I just saw them smiling and they could relate to what we've been doing so far. I just saw them smiling. I'm like, okay.
Thank you so much,
right? And it's really amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a pleasure. So in the chat, I have shared my LinkedIn. If you want to reach out and connect with me, feel free. Okay. And let me know where you're connecting from as well. You can reach out, and if there anything that you feel that I could clarify or help, not money because there's no money, okay, but just all right. If there's anything I could help, yeah, let me know. If it's something I can direct you, or if a resource or something, I would do. And one last comment before I go is this principle that we have here, the how do I put it? The whole structure that we have presented here today, the idea or three-tier architecture or defense in depth or least privileges or ransomware preventing, these things are applicable across the board. You can leverage them for almost all service or cloud service providers. So I want you to keep your mind open for those who are just getting introduced into cloud technology or cloud computing. Keep your mind open as you learn these things, and know that when you go to different platforms, just you have the same tools but with different names doing the same thing. So have that type of mentality. It will help you as you grow and go into the job market, because once you reflect on what we've learned today and you go and try to do something like Azure or GCP or Alibaba or whatsoever, you will get a grasp quicker than somebody who is just starting it anew. So for now, there's hope because technology is changing and everybody is embracing cloud technology. There's a huge resource. I know a lot of people are in Cameroon who are attending this, or in Africa. it's an it's an untapped market, because a lot of people still have technologies on-prem and things, and there are still few companies, like you can imagine that a data center in South Africa, and maybe they're still planning to build one in Nigeria for Central, West, and North Africa and all whatnot. I know with the wind of change happening across Africa, and then the evolving technology, is going to be okay for everybody. You may not work in North America, you may not work in Europe, you may not work, although it's open for everybody, but it will be pride for us, for you, to be the startups in Africa and make it grow. So courage, believe in a dream. It may be quick for them, some it may take time, but I would say it's coming to pass. So thank you, Dr. Samba, for giving me this opportunity. And it's been a pleasure. I wouldn't, although I've been like you did mention, sacrifice. I had to squeeze some time to make it here. You can imagine that I have to be very open. I started doing this, preparing this presentation at 8 p.m. last night. So, that's why you saw when I sent to you. So it was 8 p.m. that I had chance, and I only slept some few hours. So I went to bed and then woke up. And I was here at 8. So just to tell you that I had to sacrifice and then get that done. But let me know if there's anything I can do in the future. If my time permits, I'll always be there for you guys. So thank you so much.
We are very grateful. We are very grateful. Okay.
All right.
Yes, Eric, you have the mic. I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. I have two things I want to bring up here, which we talked about WAF here today. And it's just interesting how actually yesterday with our students, we had a session on WAF, actually, like real hands-on, right? And they can actually appreciate how interesting it was. It was really amazing. It was really amazing. We had to deploy 2 instances, right? And on those instances, we then used our load balancer. In front of our load balancer, we created a WAF, right? And in real time, they could see how WAF was able to block each of them their particular IP addresses, right? And then we saw that without the WAF, you could access the instance, and with the WAF, you couldn't access the instance. And they saw every time. It's actually interesting that they can actually relate to this. And once again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. And then, secondly, I would like to know from you first-hand information. You've talked so much about this, and we know you have a lot of experience. And probably some of us who are on the call here, they are probably aspiring to be cloud security expert tomorrow. And probably that's their dream, because security is now becoming a priority in every environment. How is your day-to-day life like as a cloud security expert? What do you do? So that if some of us are getting into that space, what should we expect?
Okay, that's an interesting part.
What does it entail?
Yeah, so I'll give that in 2 folds. I'll just talk about now, my life now. I will not go through all the challenges that everyone goes through before you're where you are. But my typical work day is busy. And my typical work day, usually when I go, I don't know what will be on my plate, because I don't know the incident that is going to occur, or I don't know the alerts that have come in. So you remember, I grew up in Cameroon. I'm from Cameroon. Remember what they said? They were calling it SPECO. When people are preparing for exams, they do SPECO. They go and read just a particular area, right? And then hoping that questions will come from there, and then they respond. You have like people in databases where you have like a database analyst, you have somebody where when they go, what they do is they run queries, they pull out information, they organize data in the database, in relation to the database, and whatnot. Those different type of databases. So they have a structured work that they come to work every day, they are doing, repeating. So, but as a security analyst, what you can only have in your head are the playbooks. That's the highest you can keep in your head. Different scenarios and how you deal with them, because they may come back, but those scenarios will be unique, depending on the environment and the service provider or what you are supporting. So what do I say is, when I come to work, I may come to work and it may be that there's an issue with a network security group. Maybe people are trying to access something and they cannot get access to a website, an e-commerce site, or in my case, providing healthcare. We have internal facing websites for internal applications. We have external facing websites for external application, for example. We have, I'm working in a place where we have a hybrid environment. So we have on-prem data center and we have the cloud data, we have the cloud services. So now, sometimes my day, I'm dealing with issue that is occurring from an on-prem situation, or I'm dealing with a situation that's occurring in the cloud, an incident. So it may be, like I mentioned about, maybe there's complaint that external people, they can't access maybe a website content. It could be that there's something that happened and block it. So you have to go do troubleshooting, check the firewall rules, whether all the ports are open, what port they want to communicate with. So if when they say it's not working, that's what will come to the security analyst, security engineer. It's not working. So it's your problem to go and figure it out. Why is it not working? So you have to now start thinking about, oh, okay, maybe I should check the network security group. Maybe I should check if the server is even up and running. Maybe I should check. So you are the one. So we've talked about tools here. So the luck is that there are some tools where you can go to those platforms and get those reports directly. That, oh, it stopped because of this. Like you're using a guard duty, you're using Macy or whatsoever to perform before you perform an audit. So my day is resolving those incidents when they come up. My day is like doing a privacy impact assessment on systems, like new applications that they want to install. Like if you have an AWS environment and you want to install an application, say you've acquired a business area wants to install, an example would be, what services can I take in? Okay, say somebody, what services can I? So when you have a site like, there's a guy, I found a website that they're selling stuff around Africa. So it's like eBay. Let me take a general example, eBay. So eBay, what is happening is you have the server and you have an eBay application, an e-commerce application built and dumped into a server, the web server that you access and buy things. So now what happens is, before eBay, the corporation was able to buy that application or to build that application, an analyst, if they did, but it's secure, I believe that somebody did, a security analyst or security engineer did a privacy impact assessment. It's a security and privacy impact. So you look about the general functionality of that application, what vulnerability, if there are any vulnerability in it. It's like examining the code. When you go to DevOps, you see that you examine the code, but most often you examine the functional, you ask questions because you can examine the code, but most companies or developers, when you're buying an application out, if you're not building your own, they don't give you their code. They just come, they package it and just install it. So in that case, you cannot scan, you cannot do code scanning. You can only ask them, did you scan the codes? But if they say yes, okay, you mean that you have some degree of certainty that is secure. If they're not, they don't tell you that, now you have to do an assessment on the package that they have brought to you. So you ask series of questions on, you look on its functionality, what it does, then you can be able to do risk analysis. So if I build an application and bring a network administrator per se is the one, they want to install that on Amazon Cloud. And a network administrator is the one creating the accounts. And there's no functionality within the build up that when they deploy the application in production, users who create, or if I create a user there, when that user logs in the first time, that application forces them to change their password. You've encountered that when you go and create systems and they tell you change your password. So some applications, that if they don't force a user to change their password, it means that the administrator, the person who created the account, knows the password. Or now, if they know the password, so if they are rock or they are bad guys, I know everybody here is a good man, right? If they are bad guys, they can use it now to impersonate you or log into your bank account, steal money, do everything. But remember, when you go set up your bank account, your code or anything, they say it's you that set it alone. Nobody knows it. You can change it. But so when they're bringing you application, I will ask, this is just an example. Can I change my application if I install it? They say yes. I know that this risk is eliminated. So this is an example. We'll talk about securing those codes. We talk about access, how access is managed. We talk about audit functionality. We talk about the data elements. Is it compliant? Will it be compliant to the resident rule, either PCR, payment card industry rules, framework, or does it respect the NIST framework? You learn about those compliance. Does it respect the NIST 853 about infrastructure, information security, or ISO 2700? And then there's one that has come up, ISO 2717. It's a framework for cloud computing. ISO 2717, so 27,017. So that gives you an insight, guidance on cloud work computing. So, so you have all of those things that when I get to work, my typical work day, maybe I have to scan codes. Maybe I have to do a privacy impact assessment because there's a package already from that they've obtained or they plan to obtain from a vendor. So maybe there's an alert from an endpoint detection system that there's a virus or what. I need to go and check or I need to go to a sandbox and verify what type of attachment that they have sent through a phishing email and so on and so forth. So your mind is everywhere because security don't work in silo. You want to secure your perimeter, the infrastructure, and then you do security awareness to people within the environment you are working at. So training them, telling them the bad scenarios. So your mind is always like Dr. Samba's mind. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There are a lot of things I would love to discuss about them, but because of time, probably we'll do that in the background. Right.
No problem. Anytime when I'm free, we can talk about it. So yeah, I think Ola's hand is up. Ola, yeah, I know you. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Pride. My network
Hi.
is a little bit bad. Can you hear me?
100%.
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. Even though I missed some part of it, but I can still say that I really enjoyed it. I'm someone who is really interested in anything security, and I have no regret joining to this lecture. The quick question I want to ask is, I know you're very vast in anything that has to do with security. Is there any similarity between cybersecurity and AWS security?
Okay. Yeah, that's a technical one, but I will just go the way. So I will start from a different angle to respond to you, Ola. At first, they were just like, or if you're lucky within an organization that they have business only in the cloud, their infrastructure, they don't have they have not spent anything on capital investment. All they've invested is in cloud technology, their workers' access. I would say within that perimeter, within that sphere, AWS security, using all these these services within the AWS ecosystem will help you secure your environment and prevent cyber attacks. Cyber attacks in this case is any sort of things adversaries may use, either be it adversary, maybe internal staff, because adversary can be even your internal people, your village people, right? So they can be internal people who will turn and do bad things to you. So, but when you secure those systems, if any bad thing that any user, any entity, like unauthorized access, unauthorized usage, that will stop business processes, would disrupt or in any way affect business processes, you can call it an attack. Cyber, in this case, just coming to add, because people come from different ends. The people are attacked. It's not like at first it used to be just security analysts, meaning that information systems within where they are, the on-prem system where they are, they fight to secure that perimeter. They make sure a physical fence exists, nobody enters there. The people just come and walk and go out. So that one, you were sure that there's security because nobody, you have somebody mounted there. And then you could control fire, you could do all those things. But now your data is not even with you, it's in the cloud, cyber. Everything is stored elsewhere. So different people, they are maintaining the system. Now you need different mindset. So in that case, AWS has provided these services that they can help you secure your data. They can help you avoid any attack that may affect your system. But the reality now, things are fast evolving in the job market, where things, you will see a job functionality or a job description where they've added more of this cybersecurity stuff that I mentioned today. They will talk about, maybe they just say knowledgeable in AWS. Now they start mentioning that you need to have an idea about the SIEM tools. SIEM tools is just another name out there in the market. It's another name out there in the market that are used to protect. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me still?
5 and 5.
So, SIEM
Yes.
tools or other tools, there are tools that may be out there in the market that they use to protect to protect that's for web access. They may use it for alert. They may use it, so it entails, depending on how it is built, if they are SASE or I don't want to go, sorry, let me not use word that may instead confuse you. So you have those tools built in there that you can use for on-prem security to manage, to do all this, to detect, protect, and then remediate. But when they put those things out there, those job functionalities, and say that you need to be able to do this, to do that, and then they put that you should be knowledgeable in AWS security, is sort of a way of just saying we have both on-prem and we have cloud technology. So in the cloud technology side, you use all what we've mentioned, for example, for AWS, but on the on-prem side, you need to understand those ideas that were used at first before the evolution of cloud technology. I don't know if that gives you an answer. Ola?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Frank.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
looking
can
for
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm looking for something to
Thank
share.
you. I
Just,
really appreciate the
yeah.
response.
Yeah, there's something I want to share with you. I want to show you third party. Okay, yeah, I know where they are. Okay, just give me a second and I will show you. Okay, third party. Okay. One moment, let me see slide. Just give me a second. Don't go. Let me show you something.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, let me go here and show you something. Let me go and share my screen. Sometimes the brain is crowded. Okay, now I can see. Okay, I know what I wanted to show you. So do you see this? AWS Marketplace Security Partners. So these are different tools that are out there, but AWS is partnering with, you can, within the AWS environment, use any of these tools for your security purposes. So here they have aligned different things that you can do with these tools. What you can use them for, there are some here that I've used. So you see like configuration management, you can use Trend Micro. It is not possible that you can know all these technologies. But if you know the principles, what they are used for, it's easy to employ. It's easy to deploy and use them. So some of them are straightforward, some you just have to go through. But if you know that, oh, I can use this for this, then you go and configure that, you can use them. So cybersecurity is just a general term. Security is just a general term that have no boundaries in putting up security for cloud technologies. Hello? Hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm in a very bad receptive area, so I'm finding it difficult to mute at times. But thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime, Ola. Any last one before I go?
Okay, so thank you very much. Yes. So I think that's it. It seems Peter has a feedback. You have the mic, please.
No, Dr. Samba, no. I'm fine. I'm okay.
All right, great. So for those who are not yet in our WhatsApp
I was
forum,
just appreciating.
okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
So for those who are not in our WhatsApp,
Let me leave you, Dr. Samba, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right. So we do share constant updates in our WhatsApp forum. For those who are not yet in the WhatsApp forum, you can kindly click on the link to join. Thank you all, everyone. Thank you. We do appreciate you. Please, a final screenshot. Oh, it's a price just left. We could just come on camera. Those who can be on camera, let's just take a final screenshot just for the sake of documentation, please. If we can be on camera, a last one, that'll be very, very appreciative. For 2 seconds, we just take a final screenshot. Thank you all so much. We are doing this for the community. This, I believe, is going to encourage so many people who are giving up already on this technology, so many people who are still coming in new. Let's give them hope. Let's make them know it's possible. We can learn this thing, even those in Africa. This is the only opportunity we can use to give back to them. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, Captain Oluo. Thank you, Ms. Azza. Thank you, Mr. Valentine. Thank you all. So, Ms. Olainka, we lost your camera. 2 seconds. Let's just have this. All right. 2, 3. Good. That's fine. Thank you all very much. And do have a blessed weekend. We're going to update on the next schedule for our subsequent workshops. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, doctor. It was a pleasure, okay?
You're welcome.